Beautiful day for football. A complete full house at Legion Field. The Tigers and the Tide. Need I say more? Here we go with a showdown. The Iron Bowl, whatever you want to call it. Wilson is moving on the ball. Kick is away. Joe LeBou, 2 yards deep in the end zone. LeBou, 5, 10, to 15, 20, 25, and down he goes on the 28-yard line. Terry Davis is running the run-pass option. He's got his pass away. Intercepted at the 35 by Langner. To the 30, trying to get wide. David Langner to the 20, to the 15, and he's out of bounds on the 11-yard line. David Langner on the interception. Wheeler is wide left. Wishbone backfield. Terry Davis calling his signals. Long count again. Here is Bisceglia. Touchdown, Alabama. Coming from either side to try to block the kick. Auburn trying to go after it. Here's the snap. They got it. Block kick. Balls back to the 25. Picked up on the bounce at the 25-yard line. And in for a touchdown is David Langner. Now they're going to mark it down. I think Bill Newton blocked it, as you might imagine. Greg Gant standing on his own 30. Auburn will try to block it. Auburn going after it. Here's a good snap. It is blocked. It is blocked. It's caught on the run. It's caught on the run. He's going to score. David Langner. David Langner has scored. And Auburn is tied the game. Roger Mitchell blocked the kick. Roger Mitchell blocked the kick. And they have the other wideout Wood on the other side. Here's Davis back to throw. Lots of time. He's away up the middle. Overthrown. Intercepted. At the 41. Auburn's goal. David Langner.
The 1960s ended on an upswing for Auburn University football as All-Americans Pat Sullivan, Terry Beasley, Buddy McClinton, and Larry Willingham came into their own, lifting the Tigers into the top 20 in 1969 before breaking into the top 10 to launch the 1970s. Coach Ralph Shug Jerd's 21st season at the helm had the potential to be his best. His 1971 squad, looking to go 11-0, one game better than the Tigers' undefeated 1957 national champions. As Sullivan, the eventual Heisman Trophy winner, lit up SEC defenses, Auburn appeared well on its way till a 31-7 loss to Bear Bryant's Alabama in a match of unbeatens ended the Tigers' hopes for a perfect year. Still reeling from the Iron Bowl, the Tigers closed out the 71 season with a second loss to Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl. And what had been one of the brightest falls in Auburn history only weeks earlier suddenly gave way to a dismal winter. With 13 starters completing their eligibility, Sullivan and Beasley among them, expectations were low for the 1972 Plainsmen. Sports writers around the country picked Auburn to finish at or near the bottom of the Southeastern Conference, a view that served as fuel for off-season workouts in the searing summer heat. Being underestimated was nothing new to Bill Newton. Born and raised in Fayette, a rural Alabama town 40 miles northwest of Tuscaloosa, Bill and his twin brother Bob were the youngest children in a large family.
Well, I was one of 6 siblings raised out in the country, very rural, and I guess you would say at that time we were considered somewhat poor, but I didn't really know it. We had a roof overhead and we ate real good and had a lot of fun.
We used to argue about who was the poorest, us or them, but we lived about 2 miles apart, and there was always a bunch at their house on Saturday. We'd always hunt.
We didn't realize we didn't have anything because we had all the fun we wanted to do, hunt and fish and play, and had all the friends we wanted. You know, we didn't realize everybody else may have had something we didn't have.
A lot of fun, fond memories of growing up, and especially swimming in the rivers on the farm. That's how I took my bath till I was 12 years old.
We had a swimming hole back of our house, and we lived in it just about whenever we wasn't in the field working every night or whatever. That's where we come out and took our baths, you know. We always have a bar of ivory soap down there because it would float.
It's great growing up in a large family. You always have a playmate, especially when you have a twin brother. But growing up in Fayette, offered me a lot. Small town, it's a close community, and very, very much, part of my life.
While life in Fayette offered the Newton siblings ample opportunity for childhood adventure, it also came with its challenges. Family responsibilities often took priority over fun and games, all the more so when health issues and ultimately tragedy presented a difficult set of circumstances.
My daddy didn't really believe in the boys playing sports because he had better things for us to do on the farms.
I remember when he passed away, we actually got up and got on a bus that morning, went to school. Coming home that afternoon on a bus and never seeing him again.
Caused a lot of the burden and whatever to be put off on me, to help the family raise the other kids.
Joe and Cliff are my older brothers, and they would go off hunting or whatever. And Mother would say, "You're taking them Bill and Bob with you. Take them with you and watch after them."
We made Bob and Bill what they were.
My goodness, they would take us off, sit us down on a stump in the woods, and run off and leave us.
We treated them bad, I have to admit, but they loved it.
That was their idea of watching after us.
It's hard at the time, but we had a place to live and plenty to eat and clothes on our back, and just like everybody back in them days, we made it.
As the Newton family pressed forward, local coaches, seeing the athletic potential of the twins, asked for and eventually received the blessing of a Newton parent.
Well, I recognized that Bill and Bob, they were in 7th grade, and we had our elementary program, and we felt like that they would be two of the top athletes when they got a little older. And so after their father passed away, I started working on their mother. Anyway, she let them come out, and they went through our junior high program.
I was always small, and I think people relate to the fact that the runt has to work harder in life to make it. And Bob had the size on him. He was larger, but I know that I always had an advantage of him because when we would get in a ruckus or a fight, I could hit him and run. He couldn't catch me.
Bill was a guard, and he played linebacker on defense, I believe. And
He was dominant in his size. He was a good athlete.
Bill was a little bit smaller, but Bill got a big heart on him. Now when he got out there, he got after it.
And he developed, and not through my efforts, but he developed with age and became a good football player.
The late 1960s were high times for Coach Buzzy Morgan and his Fayette County Tigers. With 3 All-State players, 2 of them twins, 3 straight winning seasons, and a defense that allowed only 10 points a game over that span, it wasn't long before college recruiters came calling.
But, then Auburn finally came in at maybe toward the end of my junior year, started talking to Buzzy or Coach Morgan. And so things progressed from that.
He was being recruited by Auburn, and I got to tag along.
When he got to be a senior, they really got after him then. Coach Mitchell, who was coaching at Auburn at the time, he's the one that recruited him. And I kept telling him, I said, you're getting the wrong boy.
So Auburn really wasn't looking at me as a recruit.
Coach Morgan told me that he had a chance to get either Bill or Bob a scholarship, either one. And he said, I got it for Bob because I felt like Bill would walk on and make it.
I think they kind of knew that if they offered one of us a scholarship, the other one would be there.
And Sam Mitchell was talking about going into the Newton household, having to tell Bob and Bill, and above all Mrs. Newton, that Auburn was offering a scholarship to Bob, but they were not offering a scholarship to Bill. And Sam talks very vividly about the reaction of that family around that table. Bob was quiet, Ms. Newton was a little bit tearful, and Bill just said, well, by golly, I'll go down there and I'll prove myself. I'll show you I can play.
We had a big signing day for Bob. Bill was just brokenhearted, but he said, Bill said, we want you to come down and walk on.
He really was tore because he could not offer both of us scholarships. He told me that I fit in the same category with a lot of other smaller athletes that had the heart, just didn't have the size to play.
And what makes it even better, and I'm going to say this, is that he worked for it. He paid the price with his desire to succeed.
The Newton twins left home to suit up for a college football coaching legend, Shug Jordan, an Auburn Tiger at that time for parts of 5 decades, engaged in epic battles against other SEC luminaries, Alabama's Bryant, Ole Miss's John Vaught, and a former Jordan assistant now at Georgia named Vince Dooley. Heated fall Saturdays aside, Jordan was beloved and respected by rivals, peers, and pupils alike.
I can't say anything more about Coach Jordan than what a gentleman and what a great mentor that a person could have as a coach. He was just a great Southern gentleman.
Most people at the time thought Coach Jordan was a nice gentleman, a soft-spoken, and he was.
That's the way he always presented himself, especially in public and around us most of the time. But believe you me, he could have a very, very tough side.
Well, any man who was wounded on D-Day and refused to leave the fighting arena, any man who was a part of 4 major invasions in World War II, he's tough.
All right, Landman, that's the way to get off with the football. Backs, run like a wild man. Wild man turned to loose. Be sharp, be ready. Let's go. Come on, let's run it again.
I think about his love, his dedication, his commitment to this thing called Auburn, because Auburn made a difference in his life, and he wanted Auburn to make a difference in other people's lives.
He got everything out of his players because of the kind of person he was. He took all of us under his wing, looked after us.
The best way I can describe it is like a father away from home. I mean, he took care of you. He was genuine with you.
You know, he was called the man, and he was the man. I mean, when he made the rules, he expected you to go by them. Now, what a great man to play football for. I mean, he taught you the game. He taught you how to play hard. He taught you never to quit.
Taught us lessons in life, and he was committed to make sure that we did the best we could do on the field for Auburn University.
Most important thing was Auburn. And the most important thing about Auburn was helping young people grow and achieve their dreams.
As the Auburn Tigers resumed preparations for the 1970 season, a new crop of freshmen joined the ranks. Among them, an undersized walk-on determined to prove he was worthy of a scholarship, as tough and capable as anyone wearing orange and blue. Earning the respect of his new teammates and coaching staff was no easy task.
We were out there first of spring training, and they had called a bunch of us freshmen to be blocking dummies for the first team offensive line, going full speed. And I was just accustomed of when you're a blocking dummy of letting the guy block you. And when I did, he blocked me pretty good, and Coach Lindo and Coach Askin, especially Lorendo, was really just telling me what the hell I was doing. Why are you out here, freshman, if you're not going to put out or do any better than that? And actually, it was really music to my ears, because actually I got up and I realized from that point on that it was going to be my butt or his, and it wasn't going to be me anymore. So we got up. He called a snap count, and a guy fired off, and I decked him, and I just pushed him back, and it felt good, you know. Well, the next day I walked looking at the depth chart, and I'd moved up one. And for a series of about 12 days there, I started moving up one notch till at the end of spring training, I was first team.
Now playing what he believed was his natural position, and with freshmen bound by the NCAA from competing at the varsity level, Bill was given a season to adapt to his new environment. Hoping for an opportunity to show what he could do, Bill finally got the invitation he'd been looking for.
But I started off on specialty teams, on punts, on the kickoff teams.
When he first came to Auburn, strictly blue collar. Worked his buns off, did everything that was asked of him, was physically tough.
We were playing University of Chattanooga at Tennessee, and I was on the kickoff team, and I remember that. They kicked the ball off, and one of their good running backs got the ball, and I was in a dead stride, just right down the middle of the field, and that running back, and I hit just head on. I mean, just out and put him out of the ball game. First thing I did.
Smart player. That's the first thing I would say about him. Smart. Not oversized as a large guy, but I mean, he could play the game. He had a feel for the game.
Coach Durden used to have a term, old reliable, not fancy, not flashy, but a guy you can always count on.
Finally, getting the opportunity to contribute. Bill learned the ropes on a defense led by standout performers Bob Brown, Tommy Yearout, and Dave Beck. And while Sullivan and Beasley were piling up stats on offense, the defense was holding opponents to low output while developing future stalwarts in Danny Sansbury, Benny Sibley, Mike Neal, Johnny Simmons, and David Langner. The lightly regarded 1972 Plainsmen had a number of holes to fill, and the Auburn coaching staff wasted no time looking for suitable occupants. Refusing to accept the low expectations of the outside world, Jordan and his assistants determined trial by fire would quickly separate the men from the boys.
And the coaches, I think, made a very conscious decision that we were going to have to move from somewhat of a finesse football team that scored a lot of points to just a very aggressive physical football team.
And in 72, we came back for the quarter break at the time, and the message on the bulletin board was the team meeting. Winter workout program started the next day.
Nobody described winter workout to you at Auburn. It was almost like a torture chamber. They put us in the boiler rooms down under the Coliseum, padded the walls, and threw mats on the floor, and that's where we became men. They would make us wrestle.
You came out of that tough, and that's why that football team is so close and such a good, strong bunch of men.
We all lived with each other, and we spent the summers with each other. We'd go home with each other on the weekends. And
all of those guys on that team are still great friends today, and it's because of what we went through.
And those guys have had such a phenomenally close relationship over the years. It has really enriched all of our lives. Every year, the guys get together and go on a hunting trip, and they take their sons. So not only have they stayed in touch, but our sons know their sons. And so it's really become one huge family.
Among the players who embodied the relentless personality of the 1972 Auburn team was a scrap-iron defensive back from Birmingham, David Langner. Less than imposing at 5'9", 170 pounds, Langner made up for his lack of size with attitude, aggressiveness, and a willingness to take risk.
We left Montgomery driving towards Auburn, and it was raining and misty raining and stuff, and we got maybe to the Wire Road exit, and as we passed that exit, this motorcycle came flying by us. We were doing maybe 60, and that thing had to be doing 90. We got to the Sewell Hall, pulled in and parked, and when we parked, I noticed the motorcycle was sitting over there, and I'm thinking, he made it, or whoever it was, somebody made it. So we walked in, come to find out it was David Langner. I talked to him and met him, and I said, man, you gonna get yourself killed. And I said, you had to be doing 90. And he said, well, yeah, I was doing about 90, and I was scared to go any faster because the roads were wet.
David always has been unique and always will be.
David had one of the best explosions on the ball from the last closing step to contact.
When he hit you, and I had to go against him in practice, so I know, when he hit you, you knew who it was.
He was a spark. He would punish you like nobody else in the SEC. It's hard to believe that somebody that weighed 173 or 4 pounds and was solid muscle could strike you the way he did.
Shaped in the crucible of a rigorous spring and fall, the Tigers would be tested from the start, kicking off the 72 season on the road in Jackson, Mississippi, against conference opponent Mississippi State. In the place of Heisman winner Sullivan was sophomore quarterback Randy Walls, one of several players getting their first taste of college playing time in a hostile environment.
And we were an underdog. We were only picked to win one ball game in 72. Randy Walls comes on to warm up before the game with his jersey on backwards. I mean, that's how nervous he was.
He really didn't know how we were all going to react, in a hostile environment.
We went into Starkville a little apprehensive and nervous, but we knew if we could control it on defense, we had a chance.
And our coaches instilled in the defense, number one, if you don't let them score, it's going to be a tie game at least. And the second thing is that we could score on defense, and that's what we did.
Following a rare September bye week, Auburn added to its opening win with a too close for comfort 14-7 home victory against UT Chattanooga. Breathing a sigh of relief at 2-0, the Tigers entered the heart of the schedule, 3 straight weeks on the road against SEC opponents. Up first, a matchup at Birmingham's Legion Field, technically a home game against the talented Tennessee Volunteers, a team riding the nation's longest winning streak at 10 games. Committing to a steady ground game led by Terry Henley and a sound containment scheme, Auburn frustrated the Vols all game long, pulling out a 10-6 win to boost the record to 3-0. And suddenly, the Tigers were eliciting a few raised eyebrows among those who weeks earlier were pronouncing them dead on arrival.
If I remember right, we were somewhere in the 25-point underdog range. Tennessee had ever All-American, Conridge Holloway, Jamie Rotella, Conrad Graham.
That was a hard-fought game. And Tennessee, quarterback, I believe, was Conridge Holloway. He was as elusive of a runner and a quarterback as I've ever seen. Great player.
Dave Beck and Johnny Simmons had known Conridge Holloway for a long time. They told him, said, we're going to beat you. We're going to beat you, Conridge.
I mean, we worried about containing Conridge Holloway from end to end. We normally rush 4 people, but we rushed 5 people all day and made it look like we were in a man-to-man defense from a passing standpoint, but we're actually running zone.
The play I remember most was Mike Neal hit their running back and stopped him and made them punt. And when they had to punt, that kind of turned the game.
We threw one pass the whole ball game, 14-yard pass to Dan Nugent.
It came down to the last quarter, and we had to kick a field goal, whether it was going to put us 4 ahead or we're going to just be 1 ahead. And so people wondered whether I could make that one or not, but I was lucky enough and it made it.
And we ended up beating them 10-6, and that was really an upset at that time.
In week 4, it was back to Jackson, this time to battle 3-0 Ole Miss. For the second week in a row, the Tigers would go head-to-head with a team boasting the nation's longest winning streak. And for the second week in a row, Auburn would end the streak. Auburn posted its highest point total thus far, 19, and kept the Rebels from scoring with a gritty defensive stop as time expired.
Here again, we were an underdog. They got a very good football team.
We played strong defense again. Offense controlled the football as well as they could.
It didn't look good there for a while. That was just another one of those things that you just had to pound out. Mississippi just kept on coming and kept on coming.
We kept people in their seats, I promise you. The game was always played through 4 quarters.
We win the ball game 19-13 and fought them off at the 1-yard line as time was running out. Mike Neal knocked the pass down in the end zone on 4th down, preserved the win.
In an unprecedented run, Auburn faced the team with the nation's longest winning streak for the 3rd straight week. But this time, the streak would hold. Despite having weathered a grueling offseason and the gauntlet of 4 tough early season games, the Plainsmen were ill-prepared for the atmosphere that greeted them in Baton Rouge, and a high-flying offense led by quarterback Burt Jones. The end result, a lopsided 35-7 loss.
Get off the plane and get in the buses to travel to our hotel, and every sign, every billboard in that city had something about beating Auburn.
As we got off the bus, they were hanging out of the windows, throwing things.
And I don't think they had PETA back then because they had this tiger they had run around the track. Every time it would get right by our team, it hit it with a cattle prod and it would scream. And we hadn't experienced that program yet.
Thousands of people that are wild and crazy at the game, and it was a carnival atmosphere almost.
And they pulled that big old tiger cage right up to our dressing room. And that thing let out a big old holler.
Larry Taylor goes up there and growls at it, and that cat kind of hits the screen with both paws in the front, which sends us all to the dressing room.
And I mean, it scared me, and I know it scared everybody else, but that's the first big old tiger I've ever seen in my life.
You know, the first play from scrimmage, Burt Jones ran the ball about 40 yards down the field, just on a bootleg. And it was downhill for them the rest of the night and uphill for us.
It was just a bad night, and they got lucky and threw 2 Hail Mary passes right before halftime that really broke our back.
That was one of the big disappointments in my life, because I look back on that season. Had we beaten LSU, we would have won, possibly even won a national championship that year.
Possibly feeling the effects of the week before, Auburn got off to a slow start against Georgia Tech, falling behind 14-0. Urged on by the home crowd and a second-half defensive shutout, the Tigers' offense cranked up in time to secure a 10-point win. Second straight home performance against an out-of-conference opponent gave the Tigers another confidence-building win, this time 27-14 over Florida State. Heading into a challenging home stretch, the offense was beginning to hit its stride. The fireworks continued the following week in Gainesville. The Tigers jumped out to a 26-0 lead on shell-shocked Florida, but injuries and unbearable humidity combined to slow Auburn down. The Gators, led by future NFL All-Pro Nat Moore, almost pulled off an unforgettable come-from-behind win.
That was going to be our toughest test, I thought, at that time.
The temperature was probably in the mid-low 90s maybe. It was cloudy, thunderstorming. There were a little rain that came through. The humidity down there had to be just unbelievable.
I believe it was the second play of the game, if I remember right. I take it 60-some, 70 yards on them for a touchdown. Just beautiful blocking. They had Nat Moore, who was All-Pro.
Nat Moore was hard to tackle, and we just got out of there with the skin of our teeth, and was able to pick up enough points in the second half to stay ahead of them.
With about 3 or 4 minutes left in the game, they blocked a punt. Coach Davis told me, and I think it was Mike Neal, as we were going on the field, that said, "You two guys have been here for 4 years. You've been starters for 3. If they score, I'm holding you responsible." They didn't score, thank heavens.
Sitting at 7-1, the Tigers returned to Cliff-Hair Stadium to face rival Georgia. With Terry Henley nursing an injury, the offense called on first-year back Chris Lindemann to carry the load against his home state school. The sophomore came up big, and so did the Plainsman, taking a 27-10 blowout into its off-week preparation for its arch-rival.
I'm from Georgia, so I had a lot of friends and relatives that went to Georgia while I was here at Auburn, and Georgia was always a huge rivalry for us.
Probably made the best catch of my life. And I'm in the air, a defensive back, is the highest he can reach up my leg or about right above my knee. Randy thought it was intercepted in the end zone. I caught it right on the tips of my fingers. And I mean, I'm stretched all the way out like you're dunking a ball. He gave us first down, went on in to score.
Coach Jordan chose not to play me. He said, I just want to hold you out until the Alabama game and get you completely well. And Chris Linderman steps up, has 2 big runs to start the ball game out with, and we win handedly.
Now 8-1, Coach Jordan and his Chargers could concentrate their efforts entirely on the team across the state. Alabama, ranked number 2, was playing arguably the best football in the country at the time. Since unleashing the wishbone attack in 1971, the Crimson Tide had won 21 of its last 22 games, most of them in dominating fashion. Add to the mix 2 coaching legends, a national television audience, a raucous Legion Field crowd of 72,000, and the year-round intensity of the nation's top blood feud, and you had the makings of a classic.
Beno Cook, the ABC and later ESPN commentator, said, "The Auburn-Alabama game is the Mideast of college football." Keith Jackson said, "When you're born in the state of Alabama, you're born with a decision to make, Auburn or Alabama."
The rivalry is just so intense and everything, and other people in the country don't understand it either.
I tried playing with 4 different pro football teams. And when I would be in training camp, I can't tell you how many of the players used to ask me, what is it like to play in that Auburn-Alabama game?
I know Ohio State and Michigan are a big one too. Southern Cal and Notre Dame's big and all that kind of thing. But there's nothing like an in-state rivalry like this that they're out for blood.
Well, it's a privilege, first of all, that only a select group of people get to play in that football game. And it's known nationwide. And it's always been a rivalry, and it will continue to be a rivalry. It's not going to calm down, and it's not going to get any easier. It's going to be a hard-fought contest each and every game.
You know, the great thing about back then when we played is that everybody on Alabama's team we knew. You know, somebody had played against somebody somewhere in some high school because everybody was from Alabama. You know, 99% of the players on both teams had played in the state of Alabama.
Now, after the game is over, you may have a best buddy on the other side of that field that you go over and shake his hand. But during that ball game, you're trying to cut his lights out.
The Auburn players needed no extra motivation going into the game, but got it anyway, in the form of a comment from Coach Bryant, who referred to Auburn University the week before the game as that cow college across the state.
You know, leading up to the game now, during the week, Coach Bryant had called Auburn a cow college at a speaking engagement. And of course, it had come back to me, and I was kind of the talker of the team, I would say, and the news media came in, and I sat them down and told them, I want you to print it just like I'm gonna say it, that I think he's a rude, immature old man to be calling us a cow college, especially when he hadn't beaten yet.
There was a lot of hype going on about Auburn. Auburn was a 14-point underdog, I remember this day.
I lashed out at him, and I meant every word of it. No sense to send a message like that and criticize us, and
And there was not a whole lot of positive hope that Auburn could win this ball game. It was Alabama was undefeated, number 2 in the nation, and had a strong team.
We're going to give you something you're going to get used to. Boom, boom.
My brother calls my brother Bob up and talks to him and said, Bob said, look, these guys are just giving me heck. Said, they up here wanting to bet me, and said, out of pride, I just got to do something. I said, I just can't, just sit here and give. And he said, are they going to beat you more than 14 points? And Brother Bob said, no, I don't think so, but you need to call Brother Bill and talk to him about it. So Joe calls me up, and realizing the fact that he's up there with a bunch of guys that would put any amount of money he wanted to on it, I was kind of concerned. But Joe, I said, Joe, take their money, take their bet. He said, I said, ain't no way in hell that they're going to beat us 14 points.
Auburn had its hands full, going up against athletes as talented as any in the country, and a wishbone attack that worked with cool efficiency. Jordan and his staff had learned from their mistakes in the 71 Iron Bowl and hoped to correct them this time around.
You could feel the tenseness in the air when you got to the stadium.
Everyone was nervous. And Coach Jordan said at one time, he said that if you're not a little bit nervous, you're not prepared.
The coaches, I'm sure, were very nervous about our performance and ability to play with Alabama, but they never did show it. It's just another walk in the park today. We knew we were capable of playing with them.
Of course, that was the second year that Alabama had been running the wishbone. Our defense was a lot different from the year before as far as what we tried to do.
Basically, we moved from a 4-4 to about a 4-3 and moved me over the center, and we could cover the ends.
The main thing we did more than anything else from a defensive perspective is we flip-flopped David Langner and Dave Beck every play.
You know, the fear of God gets in you when they run a loaded option to the outside. It was a play that you looked for every time in the wishbone.
Here we go with a showdown. The Iron Bowl, whatever you want to call it. Wilson is moving on the ball. Kick is away. Joe LeBou, 2 yards deep in the end zone. LeBou, 5, 10, to 15, 20, 25, and down he goes on the 28-yard line.
The Tigers started the game well. Langner snagging a Terry Davis pass and returning it deep into Crimson Tide territory. But the offense, in a theme that would hold through most of the game, couldn't convert the opportunity into points.
We started the game off with a bang. I mean, we intercept the first pass that's thrown. David Langner does.
Intercepted the pass, and I think ran it back to the 8-yard line.
First play from scrimmage, I broke loose and go to the 1 or the 2, and then we don't get it in. Then we bobble the snap on trying the field goal, and they've got it going the other way another time. So if you think about it, we really started out very well, but then Alabama just kept doing the wishbone thing, but our defense hung in there.
You know, our best play was a punt, you know, backing them up. David Beverly, you know, just kicking the ball out of the stadium. If it wasn't for that, we'd be behind 50-0.
In this game, he boomed some punts, put them have to go the length of the field, not give them short field.
When we got the ball, it was like 3 downs and a punt and out.
The Alabama offense moved the ball effectively in the first half, but Auburn held tough, limiting the Tide to no points in the first quarter and a touchdown and a field goal in the second. A blocked extra point by Tiger defensive back Roger Mitchell on the game's only touchdown seemed nothing more than a moral victory at the time, but his extra effort would make possible the dramatic finish that awaited the second half.
The 2 block punts, of course, will have been highly publicized, but the thing that made it possible for those 2 block punts to win was Roger Mitchell blocking the field goal of the extra point.
11:16 left in the half. Alabama on top 6-0. Bad snap. They got it down. Blocked. The point after is blocked. It was a bad snap from center. Timeout on the field.
It's probably one of the most unsung heroes of that game and everything, that he put a hand on the ball and knocked it away. And they didn't worry about the missed extra point. They thought that, you know, they were going to beat us worse than that.
So there were 3 big blocked kicks in that game, not just 2.
Halftime adjustments had little effect where Auburn's offense was concerned. A back-and-forth third quarter saw Alabama extend its lead to 16-0. And as shadows made their way across Legion Field, Crimson Tide fans began to celebrate the game's inevitable conclusion. But the Auburn squad, whose tenacity had been forged in brutal off-season workouts, kept coming.
No, I don't think there was any time in the game we ever gave up. You know, where we win or lose or whatever. You know, that just wasn't part of our makeup. I can say that I would certainly think that nobody thought that we were going to win that game.
So we knew we just had to hang in there. And the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. Well, they never quit. They never gave up. Danny Sansbury, he dealt them fits all day long, and Johnny Simmons, you know, knocked their heads off every chance he got.
I remember that the crowd, the Alabama crowd, had already started leaving the stadium, but not one Auburn fan had left. They were still there.
With time ticking away, Auburn finally managed to move deep into Alabama territory. Facing 4th down and less than 10 minutes remaining, Coach Jordan had a decision to make.
We went to the sideline, and it was the first real drive we'd had all day, and we had like 3rd down and 4 yards to go or something like that. And, you know, I'm telling Coach Jordan, I'll get the 1st down, just give me the ball, and I get the 1st. And he put his finger up, you know, be quiet.
Coach Jordan called me over and he said, "Gardner, you think you can make this field goal?" And I said, "Well, Coach, I think I can." And then boy, that kind of set him off too, because I said, "Well, this is a hell of a time to be thinking about it."
And all of us were wondering, why are we doing this? Why are we trying a field goal?
And I remember here in the stands, a lot of people in the stands not really agreeing with that call.
It was the first time that I'd gone out on the field and I was booed by probably about 78,000 fans.
Both sides of Legion Field stood up and booed for entirely different reasons. The Auburn crowd stood up and booed because they felt like perhaps we had quit. We felt we couldn't win the ball game. The Alabama side stood up and booed because if we kicked it, that blew the line, so to speak, which was 14 points, and that would have cut it to 3.
42 yards if good, and if it's not a fake. Well, it is a kick. Jett is away on the kick, and let's see. It is good. It is good.
The snap came, and it was not a great snap, but it kind of bounced in his hands, and he got it up on the tee, and I kicked it, and it was a pretty good kick. I was even proud of it, really, and it actually did hit the post and just grazed it on the inside and made it.
We felt pretty good, you know. You put points on the board, it brings your spirits up. I said, yes. I said, we got a hold of them there on. So I think I kicked it up another notch.
That really, to me, was the change in the ballgame.
16-3, Alabama leading. The Auburn defense took the field knowing there was no margin for error. The Crimson Tide offense moved the ball sparingly, facing fourth down in its own territory with 5 minutes, 28 seconds left to play. Bryant elected to punt.
Two a days on, we'd practice the kicking game, and we go into that game and we know that we can block kicks, but we didn't know we would have the success we did at blocking those kicks.
They had a snapper that couldn't get the ball there that fast, so he had to move up a couple of steps, and we knew he was closer to the line of scrimmage than a normal punter would be.
Auburn trying to go after it. Here's the snap. They got it. Block kick. Ball's back to the 25. Picked up on the bounce at the 25-yard line. And in for a touchdown is David Langner. Now they're going to mark it down. I think Bill Newton blocked it. And now let's see what they're going to say.
When he called the outside punt block, Coach Davis always allowed me to fill a gap in the line where I best thought that I could pull the line block down to allow the rush come from our outside where our fast guys were.
Well, I'm on the outside being pushed out by somebody, which is abnormal because the outside guys usually let go free because if it's a kick and the timing's right, he can't get to her anyway. And I got blocked out, so I'm actually behind the kicker when I get up.
When the ball snapped and I broke through, I saw the up back take the rush from the opposite side of the line. And I knew it was just the punter and I. And there was no doubt in my mind that I had it. It was just timing to take it off his foot. I didn't go for the punter at all. I went for the football. And when I did, I was just laid out in front of his foot. I just took the ball and blocked it. Saw the ball dribble to the right behind him.
The most amazing thing about that punt block and the other punt block was David Langner.
I was running and he just bounced right in my hands. It wasn't like I had to make no great play to get to the football.
Most unusual thing, I guess, was he was in the spot where he should have been. I don't think he'd been in the right spot all year other than that time.
I was able to catch it and there wasn't nobody around, so I just went in for a touchdown. I always tell Newton, thank God he didn't try to catch it. He'd never picked it up.
For some reason, Alabama gave us big gaps. And Bill and I think Ken Burnich were two inside linebackers that certainly could get there quick, and they did.
The punt. Johnny Simmons is going back as a single safety. Mitchell and Langner on the line of scrimmage coming from either side to try to block the kick. Auburn trying to go after it. Here's a snap. They got it. Block kick. Ball's back to the 25. Picked up on the bounce at the 25-yard line, and in for a touchdown is David Langner.
Shocked Legion Field crowd came to life as Alabama received the ball once more, leading 16-10. Rising to the occasion as it had done so often, the Auburn defense took the field knowing what had to be done.
The score was 16-10. Realizing another touchdown would win the ball game for us. And time was running out. We were probably under 4 minutes or 4.5 minutes left on the clock when we kicked off the ball to them.
We go back out, and I think they make 20 or 30 yards, and then we come up with a few good plays and stop them, and they have to kick. And
fortunately, we were able to hold them again,
We have a minute and a half left on the clock at this time.
and we all knew what was coming when it was fourth down. It was another, it was another punt block.
People said they felt it coming. People sensed it. It was just a hope, I'm sure.
Everybody in that stadium was holding their breath, but I think those players on the sideline, especially the seniors, said, "We're going to get it. We're going to get it."
Holding the Crimson Tide once more, the Tigers' punt block unit moved into position. Only a minute 28 left to play.
We were within 5 yards of where we were on the first kick. They adjusted their kicker. They thought the play was being blocked from the outside, but they moved him up 2 steps the second time they kicked, and of course that just got Newton there that much quicker.
And I jumped down in the same crack or same spot that I did before. And when they snapped the ball, I know that thought ran through my mind. I said, "Doggone, this is happening
Going
again."
after the kick, as you might imagine. Greg Gant standing on his own 30. Auburn will try to block it. Auburn going after it. Here's a good snap. It is blocked. It is blocked. It's caught on the run. It's caught on the run. He's going to score. David Langner. David Langner has scored, and Auburn is tied the game.
But when he got in his step to punt the ball, I was there and I blocked the ball again. Looked like I've been practicing all the time because I really put good English on it. But David Langner picked it up. He went on in the end zone, and I was excited, realizing that we had just tied the ball game. Here, a minute and a half left on the scoreboard. Fourth quarter. It was dark, getting dark, 5 o'clock in the evening. You look up there, the lights were there, and it was 16-16. And I'm thinking, I was so nervous about the extra point.
I was more concerned about Gardner Jett kicking the extra point. That's a tough one there. You catch up at 16-16, and
Jay Casey looks at Gardner Jett and says, "Gardner Jett, you better not miss this."
He says, "Gardner, if you miss this kick, you won't have to worry about a ride back to Auburn because I'm going to kick your ass all the way back."
So I said, "Hey, Jay, stay off of him. I mean, my goodness, you got to kick it. It's 16-16. We got to have the extra point." He said, "He better not miss. If he misses, I'm going to kill him." I said, "Listen," he said, "Well, we've been out here busting our hind end all day, and he ain't done anything." Well, he hadn't done anything but kick the field goal to put us in position to win.
now Gardner Jett comes on, and we got to give them the ball back.
Everybody was hysterical. I mean, it was just organized chaos is what it amounted to. I thought to myself, I said, this is the only chance I'm ever going to be in a position that I can control what's going on out there. So we broke the huddle, and it wasn't the most beautiful kick in the world that I ever had, but it went through, and that's what counted.
What a big one. All right. Snap, kick. Good. With time out of the field, the score is Auburn 17, Alabama 16.
The extra point makes 17-16. The crowd was nuts. I mean, you couldn't hear yourself. I leaned over and I said, "Great job, David, great job." He said, "Why is the crowd so excited? We're still behind." He didn't realize that he had just put us ahead, and the extra point had possibly won the game at that point. We only had a couple minutes left in the game.
As dusk settled in over Birmingham, Auburn suddenly found itself with a lead to protect. The Crimson Tide offense lined up, but David Langner was waiting.
Wheeler outside of him, and they have the other wide out Wood on the other side. Here's Davis back to throw. Lots of time. He's away up the middle. Overthrown, intercepted at the 41. Auburn's ball, David Langner.
And then Alabama starts to move again, coming up the field, and then David Langner, here he is again, intercepts the ball at the end of the game.
He just knelt down on the field. It was just like he was exhausted.
Actually, I threw the ball, and I didn't even try to run. I just knelt down on my knees because I knew it was over, and of course the whole team came out.
As time expired, an Auburn celebration ensued, while those wearing the crimson and white shook their heads in disbelief. 17-16, Auburn. An Alabama national championship run derailed, and the words "Punt, Bama, Punt," soon to become the unofficial moniker of one of the greatest games in Iron Bowl history.
That was it. That was probably the most memorable. Everybody has always seen Rudy and think you're going to get carried off on their shoulders and everything, but that to me was the most memorable moment of the game because I had never been bobbed by my teammates before. You know, I was a defensive guy. You don't bob defensive guys. You know, it's always the quarterback or doing a bunch of rah-rah stuff. But we knew it was over.
Alabama, their fans were just sitting there dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it because we were not, Alabama was number 2 in the nation. The number 1 team had lost. So they were actually number 1 coming out on the field that night.
And though the crowds, the people started pouring over the fence. They were young guys, young kids, anything, chin straps, whatever you had on you, they were jerking it off and saving it for souvenirs. And one of the biggest, I remember even the atmosphere in the dressing room, the coaches could even, didn't really get a chance to even speak to the team on a one-on-one basis about what a great game and was it because we had so many people in there. It just overrun the stadium, overrun the dressing room.
Coach Sheridan told us that night, he said, I will go anywhere, any place, and any time with y'all and play anybody. It was a happy bunch of guys. I'll tell you that.
I mean, he was jubilant too. I mean, he was so excited. I mean, but then again, we won with what he taught us. We won with those 7 Ds. We won with the discipline of playing defense well. And we won when we were down, and damn it anyway, let's find a way to win. When all else fails, let's damn it anyway, let's find a way to win.
The span of an afternoon, 2 undersized, underestimated young men became a part of Auburn football legend. Though their lives have been permanently impacted by 2 unforgettable plays, they say the ultimate reward is being part of a unit. Brothers who fought, laughed, shared disappointments and triumphs.
It wasn't just me. You know, we had a team. You know, our team is still as close as we were then. You know, we still meet all the time or see each other all the time or have players that we take care of and do things for. And, you know, there never was a individual on that team that was any better than anybody else.
We have a family, and it's always been a family. It wasn't something of a name that was just created. It's always been a family.
Season, the team is captured in the 2 blocked punts. Those 2 blocked punts are but outward and visible symbols of what that team had in its heart. That's the reason it was a great team. And that's the reason the defense was able to hold on. And that's the reason those 2 blocked punts took place.
Well, it's really quite incredible because no matter where we go, when somebody finds out that Bill is the one who blocked the punts, they always begin telling stories of where they were.
Now, you can just about ask any Auburn fan, you know, what is one of the best games that you remember? Let's say 17-16.
Just having somebody remember something that you did, because that's what a person strives for in their life is something that goes down and that is carried forward. And I'm proud of that, very proud of that.
I've enjoyed the ride. I really have. It's been probably one of the, it has to be one of the highlights of my not just career, of my life and everything. I have to be the luckiest guy in the world.
You just really don't realize the impact that maybe 2 minutes of your life makes 40 years later.
And it means a lot to all of us just because, we're part of history.
Roger Mitchell, the guy who blocked Alabama's first extra point, walk on. Bill Newton, the guy who blocked the 2 punts, walk on. Gardner Jett, who kicked, as Gary Sanders said, that all-important extra point, walk on. So that team was made up of a lot of little Davids going against Goliath. They believed in themselves, their destiny they knew, and they had the stuff to make the dreams come true.
line of scrimmage, coming from either side to try to block the kick. Auburn trying to go after it. Here's the snap. They got it. Block kick. Ball's back to the 25. Picked up on the bounce at the 25-yard line. And in for a touchdown is David Langner. Now they're going to mark it down. I think Bill Newton blocked it. And now let's see what they're going to say. Touchdown. They haven't saved him. That means David Langner is up on the line of scrimmage again. Langner will be on the far right. Roger Mitchell on the left. And Auburn is again going after the kick, as you might imagine. Greg Gant standing on his own 30. Auburn will try to block it. Auburn going after it. Here's a good snap. It is blocked. It is blocked. It's caught on the run. It's caught on the run. He's going to score. David Langner. David Langner has scored. And Auburn has tied the game. And it's 16-16. And the entire Auburn team has come out to get David Langner. Auburn has just blocked another kick. And that all-important extra point will be coming up. Being behind. They're into the eye with the split slot man. And LeBou is now going to be the slot man on the right with Wheeler outside of him. And they have the other wide out Wood on the other side. Here's Davis back to throw. Lots of time. He's away up the middle. Overthrown. Intercepted at the 41. Auburn's goal. David Langner. The clock is out. It's 0. And Auburn has won. The Auburn Tigers have defeated the University of Alabama 17-16 in one of the stirring comebacks that you ever want to see in the history of football.